I thought what we could talk about tonight is self-love. Just two little words, rich with meaning and possibilities, and um, many different aspects to talk about it from. So the way we'll just go from the most common way the term is used, and then we'll go deeper than that. But the way it's commonly used is this effort to sort of self-reflect on ourselves and with the hope of being more compassionate towards ourselves, more loving towards ourselves. Um, and this is fine, right? This is what affirmations are about, just to try to convince ourselves of our sort of okayness, at least, hopefully, something a little better than that, but at least okayness. We'll settle for that most of the time. Um, but it's interesting that affirmations are only um, an attractive thing to do if we're holding thoughts that are unloving towards ourselves, right? We didn't have unloving thoughts, critical thoughts, self-judgmental thoughts about ourselves. We wouldn't need to devote energy to being more self-loving, right? We wouldn't have to convince ourselves that we were okay. So in some sense, there's, that we're harboring these um, critical thoughts about ourselves, and then we add into the mix that I want to be more loving towards myself. So now we have two thoughts, one in opposition to the other. But those kind of self-judgmental thoughts um, are tough to dislodge, right? I mean, they've been accumulated over the course of the lifetime. A lot of times we don't even know where they originated from. I mean, we find ourselves acting from them, feeling limited by them, and we're not even quite sure when or how we took them on, absorbed them. We didn't do it consciously. We didn't decide, yes, I want to have a self-limiting thought about my worthiness. But we find ourselves acting from a sense of maybe lack of self-worth, and and don't quite know how we got there. So it's so some of these thoughts are so deeply ingrained. We to try to dislodge them is um, hard work, right? We've all tried to do it, right? Self-improvement. So, I mean, I'll just mention a few of my own. Perhaps they'll resonate in some way in terms of, um, how painful self-judgments can be. Okay, so here's a few thoughts, beliefs that I harbored for uh, years, a lot of them decades. Um, of my life. Okay, so um, one is like my legs are too short for my upper body, right? My nose is too big. My chin is recessed to an unmanly degree. Um, I have to accomplish things in order to be worthy. Um, let's see. God, if there is a God, doesn't particularly care for me, right? That's one I held on to for a long time. Um, I don't speak very well, and I don't have any opinions worth expressing. Um, that's a pretty good sampling. I could probably come up with others if with a little effort, but um, that's just sort of a sample that of beliefs about myself that I held on to for years. Some of them for nearly the entirety of my adult life. So some of them I could manage a little bit. One, my solution to my chin issue was that I had a beard for I don't know, 40 years or so. Um, my shyness, my painfully shy uh, uh, attitude about myself, um, I worked on over the course of decades by forcing myself to speak in public situations, which was extraordinarily difficult thing for me to do. And that sort of gradually improved, but was always difficult. Um, and it really wasn't until into my early 60s when I recognized that what I essentially wasn't limited to this um, conditioned separate self. That that recognition of my essence and everybody's essence as awareness um, uh, sort of freed that sense, not overnight, but it just recognized that looking back at the separate self, seeing the degree to which it was conditioned, thoroughly conditioned, um, it was just some compassion that way, and a recognition that it wasn't essentially what I was. Um, so just that shift in identity to uh, the sense of awareness um, just softened that identification with all of these conditionings that I had held most of my life and spent a great deal of effort trying to overcome. But looking back at it from awareness, it just relaxed that. It wasn't that they disappeared entirely. Um, I can still be shy on occasions, but it just didn't matter so much anymore. It just recognized that it was just conditioning, just um, what happened to this particular body mind. But what holds all of this sense of separate self in place? Um, a lot of it is due to this self-judgmental um, self-reflection that we have about ourselves, that we adopted. Again, we can't even be sure when or how, but it's just sort of there. And it adds to the sense of separation so that um, almost all of us have the sense that we're sort of this mostly autonomous, independent being um, you know, out in this immense, vast world and just trying to get by as best we can. And even, I mean, we know, just from a purely mental knowledge point of view, we know that that's not entirely true. I mean, we know that we're dependent on, the sun for warmth and plants for food and dependent on shelter. We're dependent on water just to sustain this organism. We know that we're not really independent. Um, even on that very basic level. And yet we um, act as as if we are, as if we are truly separate from the world, separate from others. And this sense of separation as we're growing up, it is part of the natural growing up process where we come into our own sense of self, our own identity. And that's all fine. But then we, at some point, begin to feel the limitations of that. We begin to feel that um, there's something missing in our relationships with other people, something almost like a veil or a way that we can't thoroughly connect with the world and others. So we begin to sense into the painful aspect of this sense of separation. And that sense is held in place to a large degree by these self-judgments, that the self-judgments, the self-criticisms, um, the self-consciousness all contribute to this sense of separation. It all puts the focus back on this individual, separate, thoroughly conditioned body-mind. And if that's the entirety of what we are, then then it makes sense to try to do what we can to um, sort of fix that, improve that. Right? Except that it doesn't work very well. So this movement to try to, um, you know, love myself, when it's one thought, I want to love myself more, versus another thought, but I'm not really worthy, I'm not really lovable, I have to earn it, whatever our belief is. Then we just have one thought opposing another thought. And that that doesn't work. There's not enough horsepower in another thought, another good intention to unseat these deeply held, um, thoroughly conditioned beliefs that we have about ourselves. So it doesn't really work any better than um, Nancy Reagan's slogan to end the drug problem, just say no. That sort of mindless opposition just isn't sufficient to solve the problem. So here we are 50 years in the making, we still are fighting the war on drugs. Because it doesn't work, right? It doesn't really get to the heart of it, just to oppose something. So the idea of holding a deeply held belief about what we are, our sense of worth, or beliefs about our shortcomings, to try to um, inject another idea into the mix. I will love myself. Um, when that fails, then we have another thing that we failed at. So it doesn't really solve or get to the heart of the problem, because we're still operating on the same level, right? We're still operating on the level of thought, belief, concepts, self-reflection. So it's like Einstein said, no problem can be solved, at the same level of consciousness at which it's created. So if the problem is um, a held concept about what we are, um, the idea of introducing another concept, I will love myself. We're still dealing at the same level of consciousness. We're still trying to deal with it at the level of thought. And it'd be great if it worked, but it just doesn't work. And we've all had that experience. It can sort of temporarily, build us up to, get through another day. But in terms of bringing us to a lasting peace and comfort and contentment with ourselves and being in the world, it's not the right tool. We're not approaching it at the right level. So we need to sort of step up a level and look at it from a different perspective. And that different perspective is looking back at the thoroughly conditioned body mind from the perspective of awareness. So it's the awareness that we pointed to at the beginning. Just that simple, accessible sense of noticing, witnessing, whatever it is that's happening. So awareness is of a different dimension. It's not of the dimension of form. And by form, I'm including thought, I'm including feeling, I'm including objects, I'm including these body minds, all different manifestations of form. Consciousness or awareness is something of a different dimension. It is beyond form. It doesn't have the characteristics of form, doesn't have a dimension, it doesn't have a time span, it doesn't have a shape. Um, it doesn't, it's hard to really say what characteristics it has. And the reason for that is not that we don't know it. Um, we do. Our entire lives are lived in, totally immersed in this awareness. It's how we experience the entirety of our life. It's not that we don't know awareness. It is that it's so it's so completely our entire experience that there's no way to get outside of it and look at it. Um, it's um, it, it's it's what we actually are. So, to um, step outside of what we actually are to see what it is not possible. So even though we can live as it and live from that awareness, which we're already doing, by the way, we just take credit for it as a separate self. But what's actually happening is we're already living from that awareness. But when we sort of consciously step into that and know that we're living from that awareness, and become more familiar with what it actually is, then that awareness, looking back at the body mind, um, looks at it from a different perspective than just another thought. Right? So talking about awareness is difficult, um, because we're talking about the formless, but we can say some things about it from the perspective of what it's not. So one thing it's not is that it's not judgmental. It's not judgmental of um, this body mind that we're all too familiar with. It notices it, it's present for it, it's intimate with it, but it's not judgmental of it. It also, there's also a sense of unconditional acceptance of whatever is happening, both within this body mind or in that particular experience. You know, our mind may or may not like it, but the awareness itself is already unconditionally accepting what's happening. It receives that. It notices that. It's not judgmental of it. Um, this awareness is already uh, present, always present. It's not a peak sometimes experience that we have to wait for. We don't have to wait for a moment of grace to notice it. It's readily available at all times because it's what we are. It's not a elusive experience. It's not even a high experience. It can experience high times. It can experience mundane times. It is present for whatever circumstances arise. there's also a sense of loyalty. I mean, it is not going anywhere. It's not like it would turn its back on us if, if we did something that it didn't approve of. It's not judging us in that way. It's just present for us. It's present in an effortless kind of way. We don't have to conjure it up. We don't have to um, try really hard for it to be there. What's really needed is to relax enough to notice that it's already there. It doesn't insist that we be any particular way. Right? It's not trying to fix anything, not trying to improve anything. It's just present. It doesn't mean that things don't change. There's something about just that presence, that alive presence of awareness that um, when that conditioning is seen and allowed to be seen without judgment, um, there's something about that being brought into the light of that awareness that has a transformative effect on the conditioning. It's not even that the awareness is intentionally doing something. It's not, it lacks intentionality that way. It's just that there's some mysterious transformation that happens when our conditioning, especially our painful conditioning, is allowed to be seen without judgment, seen for exactly what it is without judgment. Just the sanitizing effect of the light of awareness um, has has that effect. So we could say that's almost a gift of love from awareness to the separate self. Not that, again, there's not the intentionality of changing or fixing the separate self. It's just in the nature of awareness to um, relieve that contraction. So it's from the perspective of awareness, shortcomings can be seen, but they're not seen as shortcomings. They're just seen as the result of conditioning. So there's just not a judgment there. There's sort of this um, awareness has sort of a coolness to it, right? A quietness to it, a gentleness to it. It's not like um, hot love that's demanding, wanting, possessing, full of drama, full of desire. It's not that at all. It's just this very gentle, um, loyal, non-judgmental, um, alive, um, unconditional, effortless presence. I mean, that's a pretty good description of, of love in a very intimate way, the gift of awareness to this separate self. And eventually the body mind um, relaxes into that. The body sooner than the mind, the body likes it. Mind, not so much. Mind takes a while to get used to the idea that it's no longer no longer in charge, really. The body especially likes it, just that relaxation of um, this perspective uh, that uh, as our identity shifts into that awareness away from the idea of a separate self, from the perspective of awareness, there is this a cool, loving, present energy that the body really, really enjoys and can relax into, come to peace with. And the mind will too eventually. Um, for a while, it'll argue, right? But after a while, it will settle down also. Um, but I think the the reason that this sort of gentle presence of awareness is uh, has a healing effect on these conditioned ideas that we have about ourselves, all the self-judgments, is that it doesn't oppose them, right? It's not, it's not in any way in opposition to a self-judgment that we may be carrying. Um, it's almost as if it welcomes it to be seen exactly as it is. And there's something about opposition that holds it in place, and just acceptance and allowing it to be exactly what it is that allows it to relax, allows it to sort of untie the knot. um, that contraction sort of gently releases itself. Not overnight, not overnight, but it will go more and more into that direction. So this awareness, like we said, it's formless, but it's not nothing, right? So we've been talking about some of the, I, I don't really want to call them the characteristics because they're not that. That would be humanizing the experience too much. Um, but there are um, aspects, I guess you could say, of this awareness, or it's how awareness um, can, can appear. The awareness itself is formless, but like I say, it's not nothing. There is something there. There is an aliveness there. There's um, I mean, it is what is noticing everything. It is um, what is present for every experience we've ever had. And it's not only present for every experience that we've ever had as an individual, um, but it's also sort of an indiscriminate lover that way. It's present for whatever is happening, in whatever situation that arises. The awareness is present for that also, and is non-judgmental of that also. So it's not just something that is directed towards our particular body mind, but it's also um, how awareness operates in the world. It's how it sees other people. It sees um, everything, everyone from this sense of non-judgmental um, open-heartedness, unconditional acceptance, whatever words in that realm we care to use. Okay, so there is, if this aliveness, there is something there. There is this sense of presence. There's a sense of participation in this life. There's this sense of enlivening these bodies. Um, so the awareness is formless, but it's still something, right? It's not a thing, but it's not nothing either. And so the fact that this awareness, can be experienced, all of us can't, all of us um, can become more and more familiar with it, um, implies that there's something from which that awareness arises, something even more fundamental than awareness. So when awareness looks for its origin, looks um, looks deeper than even objectless awareness, um, doesn't see anything. Yeah. It looks like an immense depth, an abyss, a nothingness, um, not a dead nothingness, but um, a totally unknown, unknowable source, right? We can call that big S self, right? Or we can call it source, we can call it God. Um, doesn't matter what we call it, but just that awareness looking uh, for its origin recognizes that um, there's something that originated out of nothingness. That self-origination um, is the true miracle, right? Out of nothingness, something arises, right? Out of the um, probability that nothing would ever exist, something does. That is the true miracle. Compared to that, all other miracles and feats of all religious traditions are pale in comparison to the miracle of self-origination of source, whatever we choose to call that. And that is lacking of all characteristics. Um, Meister Eckhart had a beautiful short um, phrase that I love. He calls it where distinction never gazed. Where distinction never gazed. You know, not not even a distinction between existing and not existing, form, formless, something even more fundamental than that, sort of the pure potential out of which this awareness arises, out of which all form arises, out of which uh, our life arises, and we get to experience that. That's the gift. That's the gift. The awareness is how we're living this life already. Everything happens within awareness. Um, this entire creation happens within the awareness that you are. And that, looking even deeper, arises out of formless, arises out of self-origination, not as a distant divinity, arises out of the fundamental beingness of what we are. And so, in recognition of that, um, what is the appropriate response? For having received this gift, this unimaginable gift of life, of awareness, of being present for a short time, to appreciate this amazing creation. So we become the eyes that through which source gets to view its own creation. That's the opportunity in this lifetime to recognize um, the immensity of the gift, and our job is to receive it. receive it fully. And we hesitate to do that. It's like, no, no, we can't. It's too big. I'm not worthy. Right? Yes, or we might argue, yes, creation's nice, but it's sort of messy too. Suffering happens, and this sickness, old age, and death thing is a problem. So we sort of argue with it, rather than fully appreciate the immensity of creation out of sheer nothingness, and we get to experience what that is firsthand. Yes, it's for a relatively short time in this body mind, but that, in a very real sense makes that even more dear. It's like a flower has a limited lifespan. Plastic flower lasts longer, but isn't quite the same thing. So from the recognition of our own awareness and where that awareness um, must originate from, someplace even deeper out of self-originating, out of nothing whatsoever. Just the absolute improbable miracle of that. Um, you know, how can we not um, just bow down in gratitude for the opportunity to experience that? You know, not out of a sense of unworthiness, right? Um, we can, this being in this lifetime isn't to wallow in unworthiness, or it's to enjoy that realization and to express that realization, express our deepest understanding of that realization and what that looks like, and how that might look for any of us will be different. It'll be unique. But if it comes from that deep understanding that what we essentially are is um, all from one source that we can approach through our understanding of what awareness truly is, because that's in the direction from form to formlessness back to source. Um, what we recognize is that source is not other than what we are, any more than awareness is not other than what we are. It is, it is how life happens. And it is all from one source. I mean, it's really the true unity is seeing that the one source um, appearing as awareness um, through all of these forms that appear to be different, but at the root of it are one. So when we express that understanding, when we move, when we act, when we speak from um, that deep acknowledgement, then those actions tend to have um, tangible value in the world.